Kyle Van Noy has been an incredible Raven, and that hopes to continue in the 2025 season. But he snubbed Lamar Jackson off of a key quarterback list, and he challenged Lamar as well. We talk about that. Some Ravens players weighing in on Justin Tucker and a possible Ravens reunion that maybe could be on the way. A lot coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, and of course, we are here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you so much for being here on this Purple Friday, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen each and every single day, and we are free and available for you on all podcasting platforms. So, in video form on YouTube, you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form, you can follow along and subscribe as well for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage. And today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Sam Njoku of the Ravens Talk podcast is back with us here today as our Purple Friday guest. And Sam, doesn't it feel like the draft was like 5 months ago? It feels like it was yesterday, and it feels like it happened forever ago. Rookie minicamp is in the books now, and we're just continuing to check off those boxes until we eventually sooner than you think, get to the regular season.
Yeah, I'm like, when is training camp again? It's coming up. It's next month. These guys are going to start thinking about getting ready for the training camp, and then July hits, and yeah, you're inching towards preseason football, and then ever so closely to that real live regular season action. So I'm very excited.
It's going to be fun to continue to count down the days, count down the weeks, the months until regular season begins. And feels like the Ravens roster-wise are in a very good spot. Maybe one or two more additions, and we'll talk about maybe who one of those could be in the final part of the show. But it's also very interesting to talk about the players already on the roster, who they are, and what the next steps for these guys are. Now, Kyle Van Noy has been a staple of this Ravens defense for the past 2 years. He's been a revelation since coming off his couch to play for the Ravens a couple of years ago, and he's been an awesome Raven. He was on ESPN, is a guest analyst. And Kyle Van Noy, by the way, first of all, does a great job on TV. I think he makes a lot of his points in good fashion. But over on NFL Live, he snubbed Lamar Jackson from a quarterback list. Now, this is not a current quarterback list, but it was Kyle Van Noy's personal toughest quarterbacks to play against, Sam. The list was number 1, Tom Brady, number 2, Patrick Mahomes, number 3, Joe Burrow, number 4, Aaron Rodgers, and number 5, Josh Allen. So Lamar not on the list. He was on the honorable mentions tier with Jaden Daniels, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger, and Matthew Stafford. And I'm kind of sitting here saying, like, come on, KVN, like, get Lamar get some love. And what he ended up saying about it was, I got to have my teammate. I don't want to give him too much credit, right? Kind of joking around. He said, but he's on there too for honorable mention. Now, this is Kyle Van Noy's personal list. So obviously we can't tell him if he's right or wrong because, this is his perception. This is his perception playing in the league, facing off against these quarterbacks. But I was a little surprised, Sam, to see Kyle Van Noy leave Lamar off this list because it's not like Kyle Van Noy has never played Lamar in his career. Plus, we'll talk about it in a couple minutes. He praised them for the stuff he does in practice, and it feels like Van Noy thinks it's kind of hard to bring Lamar down in practice. So what are your thoughts seeing Lamar being left off this list by Kyle Van Noy?
I was initially shocked. I'm not going to lie. I was initially taken aback by it, but then two things crossed my mind. The first being Kyle Van Noy is trying to be an unbiased analyst. And, it's looking like he's making that shift. He has a podcast right now. He does amazing work, and he's trying to make that shift post-career to media, it looks like. So a good way to do that is to try to be as unbiased as possible and not have your friends on the list, or so to speak, and, they're currently teammates. So I can see that being the case. The second thing is he probably has the same thing going on that we do as fans. We're so used to seeing Lamar Jackson do things spectacular every Sunday, and Kyle Van Noy gets to see it 5 days a week prior to game day. So it may be a case of he's just been there, done that. He sees it every day. He knows what Lamar Jackson can do. He more than anybody can see that Lamar Jackson is a special guy. So he may not have that mentality to say, oh yeah, this guy's as special as the rest. But I think it's probably that reason. He's probably just like us. I see this guy do this every day. It's nothing special. But when you see it on Sundays, and only on Sundays, or some guys maybe once or twice a year, you're looking at this guy's like, wow, this guy's spectacular. In my opinion, I mean, just based on what I've seen on film, there's no harder quarterback to prepare for than Lamar Jackson. I think the things he could do with his arms and his legs and the offense that he's in, it just makes it very difficult for a defender to, game plan for him. But that's just my opinion. I mean, Kyle Van Noy's obviously a way better pass rusher than I am, so he plays the game at a higher level than I'll ever be able to. So I'm not too concerned about Kyle Van Noy's stance. I mean, the guys that he has on his list are 5 guys that are, all, worldly, all pro. So no knock on Lamar not to be on that list, but we know who Lamar Jackson is. The world knows who Lamar Jackson is. And, I'll keep it like that. I'm not knocking Kyle Van Noy for the list. Let's just put it like that.
Hey, don't sell yourself too short, man. I mean, you know what? Trade it off of Elway, trade Mike Green, Kyle Van Noy, and Sam Njoku, the new Ravens pass rusher duo. Sign you up, get you that deal, and you're going to get to Joe Burrow twice a year with Kyle Van Noy. You can do a little celebration at the quarterback like Calais Campbell and Yannick Ngakoue used to do over there in Jacksonville, and very rarely in Baltimore, unfortunately.
With that Bengals online, I'm pretty sure I could.
Yeah, throw me at defensive line, all less than 150 pounds of me, and then you can really talk about how bad that Bengals offensive line is. But I agree where I feel like the only reason this happened, or, maybe Van Noy had played with Lamar earlier in his career and then was on a different team now, could say maybe Lamar would be on that list for Kyle Van Noy. And again, I'm not Kyle Van Noy. I can't tell you why he left Lamar off the list, only he can. But it makes sense what you're saying of maybe he just does see him every day. And it's just like, we are also numb to Lamar's greatness too. Like, that's exactly right. Where other fans of other teams will see Lamar make a spectacular, like that. Let's just pull up the Isaiah Likely play from Cincinnati last year. Everyone's like, oh, that's crazy. Like, what? Lamar can do that. And we're all just sitting here like, man, that was a pretty cool play. like that was pretty cool. We've seen that over and over again. And so it's not taking away from Lamar, but we also just see it so often, and that's like the expectation for Lamar. So again, I feel like with some of these other quarterbacks, and you talked about, like, obviously Brady being on this list makes a lot of sense. Mahomes being on this list makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Van Noy has a lot of respect for Joe Burrow and Josh Allen, who are the other counterparts. I think when you look at the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL, it's Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Jackson, and that's in no particular order. But Van Noy also gave Lamar a lot of praise. Obviously, Kyle Van Noy does think the world of Lamar Jackson. I don't think this was Kyle Van Noy being disrespectful. Obviously, I'm definitely not taking that away. But Kyle Van Noy also talked about Lamar and just who he is right now as a player and who he wants him to be. He actually says he challenges Lamar and said, quote, I always tell people he isn't lying when he says he doesn't sprint in the real games. For whatever reason in practice, he likes to point at you as he's running by you like, he can't touch me, and we really can't because he's that fast. And then he goes, the biggest thing that I always challenge Lamar every time I talk with him is taking that next step. He's already on another level, but continue that growth of what he's doing, the path that he's on. He's on another level right now playing the quarterback position, but I also think he can take it up a notch, and it's scary because he wants to. I'm excited and I'm grateful that I'm his teammate. And I think that's really cool from Kyle Van Noy to have him continue to push Lamar to be an even better version of himself. And really, Sam, I feel like that's what we've seen from Lamar over the course of his career. It's that continued evolution in so many different aspects of his game. But in your mind, in the mind of Sam Njoku, what is the next step for Lamar Jackson?
Funny enough, I had this conversation with myself yesterday when I was looking at film about the Ravens offense and how it could probably handle DeAndre Hopkins and Mark Andrews together. And I thought to myself, I'm not sure he can. I mean, this is like last year was insane statistically, and just what we saw from Lamar Jackson inside the pocket. It was really something special. So if there is another gear to Lamar Jackson, it is going to be terrifying. And nobody better than Kyle Van Noy would know about the abilities of Lamar Jackson and what he's capable of. So, man, I would love to see it. 2025 will be something special if Lamar Jackson can build on the success he's had in 2023 and 2024. It's almost insanity. I mean, he's breaking records. I mean, the things that they're doing as an offense, not let alone Lamar Jackson, is otherworldly. And just having another year with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry together, adding another piece in Hopkins, and finally having a defense that could potentially complement the offense is just scary to think about. But Lamar Jackson in particular, his growth as a player, if he can even move just 1 or 2%, it'll be an amazing feat. I still think, and I say it all the time, he's the best quarterback in the league. He's been that way for the last 3 years. Getting better than this, watch out. That's crazy.
I think obviously if you would ask people what that next step would be. It would be postseason. And that's not to say Lamar has been, again, one of the worst narratives out there is that Lamar is this awful, horrible playoff quarterback in every single game he plays. It's just objectively not true, first of all. And I don't think it's fair to blame everything on Lamar. Has he been the best playoff quarterback in NFL history? Of course not. He, of course, deserves some of the blame. And obviously in the first half against Buffalo, he had 2 turnovers. But what's not talked about is in the second half, he almost single-handedly willed that team back to a victory. And obviously Mark Andrews had the couple of plays, but people will only remember the bad. But that second half from Lamar was pretty masterful overall. Now, of course, he was part of the reason they were in that hole in the first place. But it's to say, like, what about the Tennessee game where he had almost over 500 total yards, or no one gives him credit for the Pittsburgh game in the wild card round, or the Texans game in the divisional in 2023. But I just think it's more consistent playoff success for Lamar. I think that would be the next step. But, you know, you talk about the decision-making improving over the course of his career. He's taking care of his body. I think that was really his second year. He started doing that really well. That really hasn't been an issue for a really long time. But we've seen the deep ball accuracy. Like, that has been something that a lot of people have been talking about. And over the last 2 years, excluding this past year, like 2023, 2022, we kind of saw a drop off in that deep ball accuracy. Well, it got better for Lamar last season. So you're right, 1 or 2% on a lot of different categories. Maybe that's the difference. Like, that could be the difference between last year, the 3 and the 2 seed, where maybe they are able to beat Kansas City or Las Vegas in their first 2 games that have fallen into that 0-2 start. So I just think it's about him starting off fast and continuing that. But for a guy that has already won 2 MVPs and arguably should have 3, there's a lot to like about his game already. It's like, it's hard to follow that up. And I said it after his first MVP season, Sam, when in 2019, when he had all of those stats and he threw for 36 touchdowns. I'm just like, well, if we expect that statistical improvement every single season, you know, by the time we're talking here today, we would have been expecting Lamar to have 70 passing touchdowns. Like, there's always going to be some regression in stats. That doesn't mean Lamar hasn't performed, though. And I think that we see just in his game the evolution each and every single season.
Yeah, his game is continuing to grow. And I think that's the big thing. As far as the postseason, I get it. You know, when you are that good of a player and you lose, I mean, people are going to look at why, and they're going to try and find every reason why. And the Bills game, obviously, the 2 turnovers were the main reason. And Lamar he needs to find a way to toe the line between playing with aggression and not being the reason why your team loses by being careless with the football. And I think last year, you know, in that game, he was trying to be Lamar Jackson, trying to be aggressive, not let the moment be what it was, being a one-and-done situation. I mean, a win-or-go-home situation. So I see why Lamar Jackson played the way he did, but, I mean, he needs to find a way to be that quarterback without being careless with the football and costing your team football games. And I'm sure he's heard that from the coaching staff and his players and all of that. And he's young. He still has time to grow. So it's hard for me to pinpoint and look at the playoffs when his entire body of work in 2024 was so exceptional. But to your point, yeah, if he can just minimize the turnover here or there, hold on to the football longer, maybe throw the football sooner than later, anticipate a route, things like that. Those are the things that I'm sure the coaching staff are working on with him. And, you know, Peyton Manning had to grow each and every day, even though he was considered to be the best. Same with Tom Brady. These guys are already so magnificent to try and find 1 or 2 things about their game to tweak just a little bit to get better. I'm amazed at the way he's played. I've never seen a guy in the Ravens uniform on the offensive side of the ball be this masterful. So it's just impressive to watch. So, yeah, if he can grow a little bit more, yeah, he could be the difference between winning the championship and not. But I still think that when it's all said and done, it's going to be the surrounding cast, the supporting cast around him that's going to have to step the game up as well, so that he's not being Superman. So he's not wearing the cape every single Sunday, every single Saturday, and give themselves a chance to win. It's going to take 53 guys, not just one, to win a championship.
If I had to get into the very finite details of Lamar Jackson, and this is being very I'm picking out the littlest thing. Yeah. I would say that sometimes, and he's gotten a lot better at this, but sometimes whenever there's a lane, he will not take it and try to force something and throw the ball. Sometimes when there is an open guy, he might try to make some magic happen, and sometimes that can backfire. Now, that is something that we have talked about, and Sam, I know you and I have talked about it. I've talked about it for years going back, where the improvement from where he was, let's say 3 years ago on that, is substantial. But just sometimes it can revert back. But again, that's picking out very fine details of what it could be. So Lamar already is such an exceptional player, and I hope he can continue to improve, because that's going to improve Baltimore's chances at a Super Bowl coming up in the second part of the show, the Ravens are going to have to rely on a new kicker for a chance to win a Super Bowl, and that is Tyler Loop. Justin Tucker officially out. Some Ravens players weighing in a little bit on the release. We'll talk about that and a lot more coming up on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Did you know that your Fire TV is also on Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Subscribe your paired controller. Subscribers sign into Xbox Game Pass, Ultimate EA Play included, and you're ready to go. Dive in 100 of premium titles, including EA Sports, College Football 25, to Call of Duty as easily as you stream your favorite shows. Now, I have my console in just one room, and I don't want to move it around when I want to have it in a different room. That's a lot of hassle. Well, you can jump into your favorite Xbox titles without needing your console in every room. So head to Amazon.com/FireTV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required, available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Again, available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Sam Njoku still talking with you here on this Purple Friday. And Sam, obviously the news of the week for really not only the Ravens, but the NFL is that Justin Tucker's 13-year tenure in Baltimore is over. The Ravens releasing Justin Tucker, Eric DeCosta releasing a statement, making it very clear that this is a football decision. John Harbaugh kind of set it up when talking about Loop and Tucker during rookie minicamp, and then obviously the statement from Eric DeCosta made it very good. It was a football decision. Now, if I had to guess, certainly there were other factors in this, but the Ravens obviously, and this is something I've discussed on the show, and I'm sure you've talked about it as well, there are certain things that if you don't want to deal with the NFLPA, grievances, whatever it may be, that was the language that the Ravens had to use. Now, again, that's why I don't think it's a football decision, but the timing of this decision, Sam, how it happened, the investigation not being fully over, was this something you expected, and did you expect it in this time frame?
No, I'm not going to lie to you. I did not expect them to release him prior to the end of the investigation, but the more I think about it, as you mentioned, the more it makes sense. Waiting until the decisions have been made, when you already have a kicker, when you're already thinking about bringing in another kicker to compete, it's just waiting until the end makes it more clear that this was not a football decision, and kind of doing it prior to or even at the end of rookie minicamp is a great way to kind of transition away from Justin Tucker, to get yourself away politically and, football mindset, all of that stuff, to just cut the cord, with the knife and get rid of Justin Tucker. I think this was the best case scenario from the Ravens, from a team aspect, from an organization aspect. This is probably the best time to do it. That way, you're not harming his legacy in the eyes of the Ravens organization. You're not really, condemning the guy for something that hasn't been fully investigated, and you can move on and transition to a kicker who you got in the last, 2025 draft, who you have very high expectations for. So I understand the move. The statement has rubbed people the wrong way a little bit, but when you look at it from the lens of the guys wearing the suits in the organization that is the Baltimore Ravens, then it makes a lot of sense.
I think also a big thing is that, Tyler Loop probably expedited this process a little bit as well. And I know that there have been not reports, but just, people talking about why. And having Tucker and Loop on the roster, some people might think, hey, it's great to have a Hall of Fame kicker to learn from. But then you look at, obviously, the stuff off field, Justin Tucker's larger than life legacy in Baltimore, and honestly, the personality that he has in that locker room and just the presence he had. And people were kind of saying, well, would that be a distraction for Tyler Loop? And honestly, Sam, they can't keep two kickers on the roster. Like, that's something we talked about. That'd be a waste of a roster space. So a decision was going to have to happen. And let's be honest, Loop was not making it through waivers if they decided to keep Justin Tucker after everything. So speaking of Tucker's presence in that locker room, you have a couple of Ravens weighing in on the situation. Marlon Humphrey just tweeting some thinking emojis out after the move happened, and everyone's like, Marlon, what does this mean, Marlon? Like, what are you doing with this? But then Lamar Jackson was asked on his Instagram post, what was this? He posted this 3 days ago, and he was just asked, bro, are you going to miss Justin Tucker? And Lamar responded and said, hell yeah. So obviously Tucker he was a larger than life figure in Baltimore, and all of the kicks, Sam, you and I could talk about all these game-winning kicks. We'd have to do a whole show on Justin Tucker and how many kicks he made. He won them more games than he lost, but it's going to be a monumental shift going from that and all of the moments that we can reminisce on with Justin Tucker to a rookie in Tyler Loop that is unproven and certainly has the leg. But how much of a shift do you think this is going to be for that locker room, for this organization? Obviously, again, the release was certainly warranted, both with what happened in 2024 on the field and the off-field allegations, but that doesn't mean that it's just this small deal that's just going to go away like that. Obviously, pretty big shoes to fill here for Tyler Loop.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty large shoes, like you mentioned, to fill for Tyler Loop. One thing I will say is I remember after the AFC Championship game loss to the Patriots, the Ravens brought in an undrafted rookie from Texas and Justin Tucker fighting a battle with Billy Cundiff. People thought he was just there to test out Billy Cundiff and see what he can do. And we knew from the first kick that Justin Tucker was going to take over his spot being at the facility for training camp. We just saw it. Every reporter looked and we just knew that Justin Tucker was going to be the guy. And from what I'm hearing, we're getting the same sentiments about Tyler Loop. I mean, from what I understand, I wasn't at the facility, but from what I hear, the kid's got a leg and he's accurate with it. And they're trying to do the same thing they did with Justin Tucker to get his mechanics down and get him ready. I think, this is the time. I mean, because of what we saw from Justin Tucker last season, it just seems like a natural foregone conclusion that you need to replace the kicker, make the shift, make the change, and get the kid ready, Tyler Loop, for game day. And he's going to go into an organization that is fighting for a championship, a la what Justin Tucker had to go through in 2012. So it's going to be very reminiscent to what happened for the organization in 2012. Obviously, Billy Cundiff wasn't a larger-than-life figure that Justin Tucker was, so that shift in the locker room dynamics will be different. But as far as game day goes, Ravens facility, Ravens coaching staff expect this to be a seamless transition.
And honestly, Sam, they need it to be, because this is not a team that is in a rebuild or figuring out who they are. I mean, Tyler Loop comes into that. And again, you mentioned Justin Tucker, his rookie season. I mean, that was kind of what Tucker was going into his rookie year, as a team that was trying to get back to the Super Bowl and had just come off of a heartbreaking loss. Now, I think that 2011-2012 AFC Championship game, the way that it ended was a lot more heartbreaking than what we saw in Buffalo. Although not saying that Buffalo game wasn't heartbreaking. I certainly took a while for me to recover. I'm still honestly recovering from that game. But similar situations. And they needed Tucker to come in there and be absolute nails for them. Because if there was like a feeling out process or him trying to find himself, well, I don't think the Ravens, the way that they ended that year in 2012 was honestly pretty terrible. But they needed every single win that year. I remember Tucker was at week 3 against the Patriots, week 4, that ball going over the upright and Bill Belichick touching, trying to get the referee's attention. Is he had multiple moments like that. The double overtime game in Denver in the divisional round. That's what Tyler Loop, those are the expectations. And I remember, Sam, we were having conversations during the year about Justin Tucker. Was it even worth it to keep him on the roster for the stretch run? Now, he figured it out after the bye week, but he actively lost them multiple games. All those kicks were going wide left. There was clearly something off, and you tack on the off-field allegations, and it was kind of like a perfect storm that said, hey, moving on from him, if it happens, yeah. There are multiple reasons for doing it. But how much runway are you giving a guy like Tyler Loop here? Because if we're going to have that conversation about Justin Tucker and Tyler Loop isn't performing, well, yes, they spent the capital on him, but it's a lot easier to move on from a 6th-round draft pick at that point than it is to move on from, in my opinion, still the greatest kicker of all time on the field. And those conversations will be loud for Tyler Loop if he cannot handle the pressure early on.
I don't need the guy to be Justin Tucker. Will it be nice? Yeah, of course. But I don't need the guy to be Justin Tucker. I don't think he can kick 70% from the field this year. And then we expect him to stay. I think we gave Justin Tucker the benefit of the doubt just because of his body of work, but he clearly can't come in missing 7 out of his 10 kicks and expect to be a Raven. But I think that they're going to give him some grace to perform. I don't know if they'll give him the opportunity to kick a 66-yarder against, maybe the Steelers in a must-win game. So I don't know about that, how much confidence they'll have in him, but I think he'll have every opportunity to succeed or fail, just like any other player in this league. But yeah, I don't know if he'll have that runway that Justin Tucker had last year, kicking, under 75% of his kicks and expecting to be there. There are other options out there for them to choose from in that regard. Obviously, they won't have the leg of a Tucker or a Loop, but I don't know if he'll be able to sustain that level of performance. But I don't expect him to have that performance. I think he's done a pretty decent job so far, and I'm sure he'll grow as the season progresses. But they'll give him every opportunity to succeed or fail. One missed kick, one missed game-winning field goal isn't going to get this guy off the roster. But, of course, costing us 4 games when you need to get that first overall seed in the AFC will be tough to swallow.
Yeah, he has the leg, 65, 70, 75, but it's different hitting those kicks in sunny weather with shorts on as opposed to in Pittsburgh with those terrible towels waving with 4 seconds left in the fourth quarter. So, it's going to be hey, welcome to the NFL pretty quickly for Tyler Loop, because we know that every point counts in the NFL. And Justin Tucker, it just felt like for so many years you could count on him. It always felt like they were in field goal range if they had crossed the opponent's 40-yard line. Now, it didn't feel like that last year, and it was a new feeling to everybody. But the Ravens do have a pretty rich history of kickers for the most part in their organization. So hopefully Luke can be the next one to carry on that tradition. Coming up in the final part of the show, will Baltimore reunite with a recently released former Raven? We'll talk about that coming up next on the show. First, the show is brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. And you can post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions, then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. So LinkedIn is your place to go for all of your hiring as well as any job needs. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Again, post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Back here, Locked On Ravens with Sam Njoku. I am Kevin Oestreicher, breaking down all things Ravens for you, as we do here every single weekday on Locked On Ravens. So appreciate everybody for being here. Sam, Baltimore lost a ton of free agents last year, and a lot of people pegged Jadeveon Clowney as one of their biggest losses based off of what he did for Baltimore during that 2023 season. Now, Clowney went to Carolina. He wanted to be close to home. He signed a 2-year deal over there. Well, Clowney was released yesterday by the Carolina Panthers. He got a sense that he wasn't wanted in the building after the first day of team activities, and now he's a free agent. He wants to play ball. He's very confident in his ability. Said there are 31 other teams out there. He's hopeful someone gives him a chance. Do you think that the Ravens should be that team, Sam? They already have an abundance of outside linebackers. They, at this current point, honestly probably have to cut one guy to get down to 5. I think 5 is kind of that sweet spot for them at that position. So if they added Clowney, might have to cut 2 guys. Does Clowney make sense with this version of Baltimore's roster?
He doesn't make sense. He just doesn't make sense. The Ravens are crowded in that OLB room. It's just too many pass rushers. But I'd still sign him anyway. I'd say go on and bring him in. Let's find out who can get to the quarterback and who can't. No more of this finding out if they got it or don't got it. Some of these guys are in year 2, year 3. Let's find out. Bring in a guy that pushes them for the competition. I don't see the Ravens keeping 6 pass rushers, let alone 5. So something's going to have to give. If you're David Ojabo and you're hanging on laurels of college, time's up, for some of these guys. Tavius Robinson, we've seen flashes, but we don't know for sure. Let's find out who really can pass rush. The Ravens need some studs, bona fide guys to get to the quarterback because, again, this isn't the NFC. The AFC, everybody has a quarterback now. Everybody. The Steelers are probably going to get Aaron Rodgers. You know what the Bengals got? The Browns got 5 quarterbacks. They could bring in a quarterback every quarter if they wanted to. And so you need to have guys that can get after it. I would say, roll the dice. Bring them in. Can't be any worse than the guys that you already have on the roster currently, undrafted free agents. Plug them in and see what happens. Does it make sense for Clowney? Probably not. You want to be guaranteed a spot. You want to be guaranteed a job. You're already in a situation in Carolina where you weren't necessarily, wanted, or at least you didn't feel like you were wanted. So there may be some outside opportunities for him to to get a chance to really get in some game time. But yeah, I mean, if you can get him in, why not? It just numbers wise, it doesn't make much sense for the Ravens to do it because there's already probably one guy already on the outside looking in. If you bring in Clowney, likely two.
Yeah, you had me in the first half of that answer, not gonna lie. I thought you were saying, no, don't do it. And then you said, no, do it. And I look, Ozzie Newsome's famous saying, or at least one of them, is you never have too many cornerbacks. And that is a reason of depth, where you are never going to get through a full season healthy in the NFL, in any sport. It's not going to happen. Injuries play a factor, and we've seen injuries derail seasons. I mean, I will never get over that 2014 season when they would have won the Super Bowl if they didn't have you and I out there playing corner in the division round against the Patriots where they blew 2 14-point leads. Like, you can never have enough. And honestly, like, Ozzie is correct at the cornerback position, but honestly, that's to be said at any position. And so what's to say, like, maybe they do go through a pretty rough stretch of injuries at that outside linebacker position. And let's, knock on wood here, knock on wood, that does not happen. But, you can never predict it. So you're right. Honestly, from Clowney's perspective, I think it makes less sense for him. And your point is 100% correct, where how much playing time is he realistically getting within this defense? Tavius Robinson, who you mentioned, I think is phenomenal against the run and, has to show a little more as a pass rusher, but I'm super high on Tavius coming into this season. They're going to have Kyle Van Noy, who's been very underrated against the run, and honestly just feels like he's in the right spot at the right time for a lot of these big third downs. And obviously Odafe always setting the edge. Mike Green is a 3-down player. So where are you going to slot him in? If he's open to being a rotational piece or a reserve or a practice squad player, then sure. But I just don't think that's where he is at this point in his career. And I feel like there are other opportunities for him that probably make more sense. But at the end of the day, I don't think Baltimore should eliminate themselves from any potential depth option because of what we have seen injury-wise over, many Ravens seasons. And we thought, hey, this team has a great shot to win a Super Bowl. And to be honest, Sam, the Ravens over the last 2 seasons, they have been very healthy for the most part. 2022, 2021, those years were pretty injury-riddled for them. But these past years, they've been healthy. You cannot expect that. You cannot have that as the expectation every single season. It can certainly happen again in 2025, but any option that you can bring in that could maybe slot in, and that's why the bigger practice squad certainly helps all these teams because you have more options to bring up on game day. It will help. So sure, if Clowney wants to come in from the minimum, be a reserve guy, maybe a rotational piece, that works, but I just don't think that's what Clowney wants.
I don't think so. I think, based on the way he felt leaving Carolina, it just makes sense for him to go to an organization where he'll be treasured, wanted, used in valuable situations and not just another piece, another cog in the wheel. When he was here in 2023, he was an exceptional piece to their championship run. And so we'll see what happens. Again, can never have too many of any position, especially pass rusher and corner. It will make sense for the Ravens to bring him in, but it also wouldn't make sense for Clowney because the numbers game may catch up to him. A lot of younger pieces, Clowney's 32 currently. Some of these guys haven't even hit 25, and they're still, fighting for playing time. So we'll see what happens. Well, Clowney was amazing in 23. I think he would be exceptional here. But, you got a lot of pass rushers. You brought in Mike Green and totally flipped that OLB room upside down, and now you have another chance to get a guy in Clowney who was exceptional as well. It's an enticing proposition. I'm sure EDC's thinking about it, but we'll see what happens.
I honestly don't think he makes the roster if he signed either. Like that's unless Adisa Isaac just is nothing like they expect, I just don't think they'd give up on a 2nd-year, 3rd-round pick in the blink of an eye like that. And so if they want to keep 6 outside linebackers, then Clowney would make the roster. But 5 is I don't know. Do you feel that way? Is 5 your sweet spot for outside linebackers?
It's 5. It's 5 for sure.
Yeah. So if you're keeping 5 guys, Ajabo to me is already on the outside looking in. So if you bring in Clowney, are you cutting Tavius Robinson for him? I don't think so. Again, Adisa Isaac would have to perform terribly. So I don't even see a spot on the roster for him. And it's not that I don't think he would be helpful to Baltimore. I just don't think the role that he's looking for and what Baltimore has to offer is really what he wants. So hopefully the Ravens can continue to round out their roster. Maybe it'll be with Clowney. Maybe it won't be, but we will see. Sam, I appreciate you taking the time as always. Thanks for popping on. Please, on the way out, tell people where they can find you and what you're working on as the offseason continues to move along here.
Yeah, it's trucking along. Find me on Ravens Talk Podcast on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram as well. Talking football all off season, getting ready for training camp, inching closer, just looking at the options that the Ravens currently have on their roster and what they can do to get better as the season approaches. Coming faster than we both realize, but it's coming. We'll see what the Ravens do.
You know what I say, the draft sneaks up on you. The regular season is a whole different beast. Before we know it, we're going to be 2 days away from the first preseason again. We'll be like, wait, when did this happen? So be sure you check out all of Sam's work. Links in the description down below. He knows his stuff, and he 100% deserves your support. So be sure to check him out, click on those links, and give him all that you got, because Sam knows his Ravens stuff. But Sam, I appreciate you. Thank you for popping on. And to everybody who watched and listened today to Locked On Ravens, thank you as well. On the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along in audio form as well for that 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage coming up. Unless there's something crazy that happens over the weekend, we'll be back here on Monday talking more Ravens football. So be sure to stay tuned for that. I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.